Hello, my friends. Andy coming to you live from Orange County, California. It is 6:30-ish on this Monday evening, and it's an anniversary of sorts. I would like to sing a song that's on my heart, and that is the old Flintstone song that they used to sing. Was it Flintstones that said "Happy Anniversary, Happy Anniversary"? That one. You don't want me to sing. But it is an anniversary. Now, I've just spent most of March celebrating my birthday, but I have to take a break for my birthday to celebrate this wonderful anniversary of a year of 15 days to flatten the curve, which was actually not 15 days. Now, I'm going to be talking about a few things here because what we realized during this year is now we had an idea during the first 3 years of President Trump's presidency, how many morons we had in this country. And for a period of time, and you could even go back to some of my shows back then, even before the pandemic hit, that I talked about when I talked about Democrats and I talked about how moronic they were. I was still at that time very careful not to say how moronic the voters were, and wanted to stick to just the politicians. It's just the politicians were moronic, that somehow we were electing some of the dumbest people on the planet to run our cities, states, and country. And other than the presidency, I mean, we had a few even around them were simply crazy. And so there was a period of time where I was very careful that I didn't want to drag the Democratic voters into the mess, but it became pretty clear as the pandemic began that it was the voters too, Democratic voters, liberal, Antifa, BLM, all of them simply either are the enemy, by no stretch of the imagination, or just simply moronic and stupid. So there's some of them that are actually very smart in their moronic behavior and decision making and that kind of thing. But there's others that are just stupid because they just simply follow CNN, MSNBC. I always want to see MSDNC, MSNBC, and ABC, NBC, CBS, all of those, right? If you were listening to them and talk about how Donald Trump for 3 years, they were saying how he was a Russian spy. None of that was true, that he should be impeached for the Ukraine phone call, which completely was taken out and taken not out of context. It was a whole new script was written by Adam Schiff, not even close to what the phone call said. I mean, we could just go on and on and on, right? So at that time, it appeared to me that it was mostly, now, of course, I know there's stupid people in this world, but mostly what was causing us our problems was the dumb Democrats. But then again, as the pandemic came, we realized that the voters, anybody that claims to be a Democrat, a liberal, is as dumb as a rock. And some of those people are my friends and family, and I have no problem telling them they are idiots. They're morons because they've made some decisions that are right now currently hurting this country. We could also go back to a year ago. Let me get rid of my first. Go to patriotcoms.org, put in your email address, your name, and that way when I get taken off these social platforms, I have a way of contacting you. So go there. If it doesn't work without the W's, put the W's in, and then it should work. All right. So up here on my board, a year ago, we were told anywhere from 2.2 million to 200 million people would die. Now, the 200 million, that Biden said that. And so, we've always known Biden was stupid. He was stupid his entire career. Now he's he's cognitively, he's not all there. So now not only is he stupid, but now the little bit of brain that was there is now completely out. So I just like to throw that in there fun. But 2.2 million was pretty close to the number that the experts, right? All the experts were giving us that's the amount of people that would die of COVID-19 at the beginning of this thing, 2.2 million. Again, Biden said 200 million people would die of COVID-19. And I'm going to say this. Now, everybody says, no, this is horrible. Not one person that died. Listen, only 535,000 people died. All right. from a virus that we knew nothing about, from a that kind of snuck up on many people in other countries. Donald Trump tried to shut down the country and did so in many ways, shutting down travel from China. Everybody fought him and told him he was racist and all the things, all the stuff that went with it. And then they like to say he did nothing, but somehow it wasn't 2.2 million people that died. It was only 535. Right. So they were off by nearly 2 million people, because I think some people said 2.5 million people would die. Whatever it was, they were off by 2 million deaths. But now they're saying, oh my gosh, 500,000 people died. It's so horrible. Well, that's pretty good compared to what you said was going to die, which is 2.2 million. So if we look back all the way back then, and then we have all the people say nothing happened. And even recently where Biden said, well, when I came in, there was no virus, no vaccine. There was no vaccine until I came in, and nothing was being shipped out until I came in, based on his speech that he gave the other night, that he said he had nothing, which is, we know was wrong. And that President Trump was silent. We know that was wrong, because they told the news back then was saying he's on the TV too much. So you have the news media who says, President Trump back then is on the TV too much. And now you have Biden saying that we heard nothing from President Trump. Now, which one is it? Either he was on TV too much or he was silent. You can't have both. Now, of course. So, this is just a total ridiculous. We could just go on, right? We can go on after story after story after story. And one thing I want to show you before I go much further. Actually, let me look at the comments here. Hey, Amy, nice to see you. Hey, Hedia, my love, nice to see you. I can't believe we've gone a whole day without seeing each other. Priscilla, nice to see you. Robin, nice to see you. Old man, yeah, you're a jerk. I can't wait to see you, Robin, by the way. Thank you. Happy birth week. It's actually happy birth month, by the way. All right, so let's look at this. I want to show you this one thing here. Oops, the wrong thing is up. Hold on, I got to show the other one. All right, so let me just make sure. So here we have, this is the, oops, oh my gosh. This is the graph. I got to click on and drag it over. There we go, because I can't see the whole thing on my side. There we go. All right, so this is a graph, obviously, of COVID-19, the infections, not the deaths, but the infections. And it's not quite from a year ago. I think it starts back from January 22nd. So this is just since January 27th, 2020. So since January 2020, I just want to show you this one little trend here, which is really interesting, right? When you really want to look at it, is that how strange as we get closer to the election, right? And I just saw this today as I brought this graphic up. As we come closer to the election, you have this line of infections, because they're testing more and they're doing a bunch of things, because that's the day everybody was screaming for testing. We need more testing so we can see how many people have it. And you can see as we get closer to the election, how it just keeps going up. And here we're in October, right? Things are wrapping up in October. Here in November, you can see things. This is right around the election, right? Between November, what's this spike right here? November 1st. Between November 1st, it goes from, hold on, I got to hold it right on there. If I don't, it won't pop up. There we go. So it went from 137,000 on November 1st to 100. Let's see, what's the number here? Hold on, let me see what this number is. Come on, baby, pop up. There we go. Oh, had it. To nearly 200,000. So nearly 50,000 between November 1st and November 14th. Now, what was happening during that period of time? Well, the election was happening, right? The election was happening. And of course, and this is where we see all the spikes. It had to happen. We had to have this spike during the election. We had to have all these people getting infected, and because we needed President Trump to be voted out of office. We needed people to think that he was killing people, that it was because of him that everybody was getting infected. In fact, the opposite was happening. They were getting all of the vaccines were rolling out. You had obviously testing that was rolling out, and people were getting testing. So that was going on. But really, what you needed was the narrative that more people are getting sick, when in fact it was more people getting tested and more people were beginning to get the vaccine. But that didn't matter. And then now all of a sudden you see here at the top is what? January 8th. All right. So you see January 8th. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the beginning of the year, January 2020. Sorry about that. So, yeah, this is the whole thing. So, as you see, as it gets closer to the election, and then, of course, as January 8th, right? This is right about the time that the nitwit is is sworn into office, and now all of a sudden you see this rapid decline. It's just just a coincidence, right? That all that happened. They really think now the Democrat voters are that stupid. The Democratic voters are that dumb that they believe, well, Biden, just him being in the office has caused it all to go away. It has essentially. The numbers and the narrative that it's all gone away has occurred, but it's not because Biden went there. It's because it's manipulation of stats. It's the media that gets all together and makes sure that they have the right story. Because you can hear when they show clips. If you ever watch Dan Bongino or watch sometimes The Five or even Hannity or Tucker, they put together these clips of CNN and MSNBC and all these other things where they're showing, and they all are saying the same thing. They're all on the same page, and that's why all these things happen. And the Democratic voters are that dumb to believe that those things are true. When in fact, it's a narrative, it's a script. It's a way that they were able to manipulate the votes and manipulate people into making a decision based on false statements and lies and all that kind of stuff. So just go look at that graphic. It's at the CDC.gov. covid.cdc.gov, and you'll see this graphic, and you'll see how the year started in 2022, and then it all rapidly goes up, and then right around the election, it goes up, and then after he gets sworn in, the idiot gets sworn in, then everything gets to drop back down, and everything is starting to go back to normal, even though they don't want you to know it's going back to normal. They've obviously felt like they've made a mistake because they want to make sure that we are still kept under masks and that we're not gathering. And he's claiming that we're not going to gather until July 4th. I hate to tell you this, Joe, but I'm in California, and Hetty and I have been out to dinner every night for the last week inside of a restaurant, not wearing a mask once we sit down. We go to a church with 4,000 people in it, and it's full, no mask, no social distancing. And our kids go into a classroom there with no mask, no social distancing, no plexiglass. Everything's fine. We're trying to get those schools open, that kind of stuff. So this is just crazy that what was brought upon us. If it wasn't for the news media, I think the number of 500,000 would be a lot less. There's a lot of things that would be way different. And we wouldn't have this next stat, which I'm about to show you. And that is the number of businesses that have closed. And so I could take you through this whole thing, but I just want to take you to Florida, New York. And actually, let's just go to New York, Texas, and California. And I can tell you the businesses with the least amount of business losses is actually the Dakotas, right? North Dakota and South Dakota are the least, are the states with the least amount of businesses that have gone out of business. And of course, it's no shock, but you have New York and California with the most, with Texas in there being one of the largest states in the union. So if I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so maybe you can see it. And maybe if I could do this, oops. I can't get rid of this video. Hold on. I'm going to see if I can get rid of this video. It simply won't go away. Oh, there we go. All right. So let's bring this up now. Uh-oh. How'd that happen? Yeah, hold on. I got to scroll down. I'm sorry. I want to make you dizzy here for a second. Oh, no. Oh, here we go. All right. So New York. So New York right here is the 46 out of 48 states that have had businesses go out of business. In other words, the worst. It's one of the top worst. So permanent closing in New York, 4,672. And then temporary closings, 4,059. So a total of 8,731 businesses in New York have closed over this last year. 8,000. How much revenue is that lost to that area in our state? Or in our country, sorry, that state lost 8,000. Now you add Texas, 6,451 permanent closings. Wow. So many businesses, 4,667 temporary. So a total of 11,118 businesses in Texas have closed during this last year. 6,000 of those, 6.5 almost, permanently will never come back. Oh, so bad. So bad. Didn't have to happen. And now I'm going to hit you with California. Ready? California is the worst. So we went from 6,000 permanent in Texas, which was a lot. And now you jump to California, 14,000 businesses in California have closed. 14,000. That is nearly, right? That's double. That's more than double that of Texas. And it's more than 3 times as many as New York, if not more. So 14,000, 50 permanent businesses have closed in California, 15,000 temporarily, for a grand total of nearly 30,000 businesses. So 29,351, nearly 30,000 businesses have closed in California since this pandemic began. That's in a year. Oh, just so unfortunate. I'm a business owner. I've owned several businesses, and I've been pretty much shut down since the closures of all the businesses started. So my primary business at the time was mostly working in the court system. So when the courts closed down, I lost all my business. So essentially, I could be added to that number. I was barely running, getting a few things here and there, $50 here, $100 there for the last couple. It would be some shopping money, just to consult and help people with businesses, but nothing was happening. And so I was making a little bit of money, but not to the extent that I was making money before the pandemic. So, and so that's me. But all the 29, nearly 30,000 businesses closing down in this year since the pandemic. Now you add Florida, New York, Texas, California, and all the other states that lost business. We're talking just so many businesses. It is just incredible. And how many people died of suicide? How many people are sick from stress, or maybe died from the stresses, heart attacks, and other things related to that type of situation, the stress of losing a business and losing their livelihood, and and all the things that go along with that. I'm working with a page here. I'm trying to close it down, but it's not giving me an option to close it down. Continue to cite. So Yelp data, I'm just going to share this really quick. Yelp data says that 60% of business closures due to the coronavirus pandemic are now permanent. 60%. Listen to this. I'm going to say it one more time. 60% of business closures are due to the coronavirus pandemic, and they are now permanent. 60,000. So as of August 31st, it says here on the CNBC article, is 163,735 businesses have indicated on Yelp that they have closed, a 23% increase since mid-July. So not only do we have the lives affected due to schools being closed, all the children that are being affected, and they're talking about permanent damage being done to children. We have the suicides that were very clearly addressed in the Las Vegas area, which caused them to open up schools. They felt the death due to suicide was so much greater than the potential of anybody dying of COVID was so much greater that they just simply had to open the business because they just could not afford to have another suicide due to the closures. But that is just one city, right? Las Vegas is just one city in our country. If you were to take and really do a research, which I don't know if anybody will, somebody should, but I'm sure that none of the universities will because they're liberal and they don't want to know. They don't want you to know that how many children have died of suicide or other types of illnesses that have occurred from not being in school, whether it's psychological issues that they're having because kids are now having trouble, with meeting other children, socializing, social issues, and some of the those types of things like what do they call it when you have a learning disorder? Some of the learning disorders have been increased because of the lack of school. Some of them will never go back to school. Some of them have turned to a life of crime, of selling drugs if they're not going to school. So you have to look at this whole bigger picture of things other than everybody was just focused on this pandemic. Not a lot of people were looking at everything else. Now, there were some people, I was one of them talking about a long time ago, and so were a lot of other people, again, like Dan Bongino, which Sharon loves, and a few other people. And Tucker were talking about it, Hannity were talking about it, and I could go on. Shapiro was talking about it, and but nobody wanted to listen to them, right? Who are they? And you had doctors talking about, we had a doctor that actually attends our church there at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, who was one of the doctors that was early on in a YouTube video. Him and his partner were talking about, hey, this is wrong. These numbers don't make any sense. They're talking about these hospitals being full, and we're not seeing that they're being full. And they came out and they shut down that YouTube. Do you remember that one? And they shut it down. His name is, I think, Erickson, I think is his last name. Hedia, do you remember his last name? I think it's Erickson. I just saw a video of him. Somebody played it on one of the news channels, but I believe his last name is Erickson. I could be wrong, but he attends our church. And I see him every day. He sits about 4 or 5 rows behind us, not every day, but every Sunday. He was talking about it. And so much of what happened in this last year in regard to the COVID was simply should not have happened. The fact that we're still dealing with the masks, that we have half our country that's so fearful that they won't even walk down a sidewalk. The other day, Hetty and I were walking somewhere, and we were walking down a sidewalk, and this other couple, you would have thought that we had 2 heads on our shoulders, each of us. So, or that we were Martians, because they jumped off of the sidewalk because we were walking down the sidewalk. We didn't have masks on, and they jumped off the sidewalk as if we were like electrified. And the look on their face was like just gas, like, oh, like, what do you... This was like just a couple weeks ago. It's just really sad how many people are they're that fearful. I mean, obviously, if you don't have God in your life, and those are some of the people. You don't have if you're not living with Jesus Christ walking alongside you, you have this greater fear than other people. I've never seen anything like it. Again, I come from a law enforcement background, so does Hedia. And so we've been through some stuff, and this is nothing to us, really. And we both had the COVID. And so it's not really been, I got really sick and I was in the hospital, but I got out. It's not going to change my life. I'm not going to run around in fear. Every time I get in my car, especially the way Hedia and I drive, it's... that's a risk. That's a risk on its own. The chances of something happening other than COVID is way greater than COVID. Right now, the number is 0.0162% chance of dying of COVID. We could die of so many other things at a greater risk factor than that. 0.162 are the chances of you dying of COVID, and we're still masked up. Dimwit Biden thinks that we should still not do anything until July 4th, and then only then maybe we should have 2 or 3 people over for July 4th and social distancing in our own house with masks on. And so many people, I see people still driving around with masks inside their cars and wearing masks outside in the open air. That really is crazy. Yeah, Hedia says it was so crazy. It was. We both went, wow, did that just happen? Have you ever seen a cat suddenly just go flying in the air, like from all 4, because they get scared and they just jump in the air and they somehow in the air they move to the side? That's what these people look like. It was actually pretty weird. All right, I want to change directions here and get off of COVID, because I could just go on and on with the stupidity of COVID and the fearful people and just how crazy they are. But I'm going to move on to the next subject here, and that is the issue that occurred in the middle of the pandemic, and that is the death of George Floyd, the shooting of the rapist that was. Went to his fiance's house, who was the victim of the rape, apparently the sexual assault. He had a knife. He threatened to use it on the cops. He got in a fight. He got tased. He fought off the cops, and then he went around to his car to get another knife, and threatened the cops, and they had to shoot him. And he was paralyzed. So then you had that. Then you had the guy at the Wendy's, and I forget his name. I did a whole show. I did like 2 or 3 shows on him where he was intoxicated, and then he was going to be placed under arrest after an extensive, testing of a field sobriety test. He failed, and they were going to handcuff him. And then he fought. He took the taser off of one of the officers. He began to run. He turned and pointed the taser at the head of one of the officers. He pulled I think he already had his weapon out, and he fired a couple rounds, killing that man. So he had 3 criminals committing criminal acts. George Floyd being under the influence of narcotics. He was trying to pass a check, which is a felony, at least in California is. I'm pretty sure it is in Minneapolis also. And then And then the others are all committing crimes at the time they're making contacts. None of the cops went and hunted down any of these guys. They didn't go, hey, let's go look for a black guy and kill him. That's not what happened. There were calls that they were dispatched to and responded in reference to a dispatch call. And while there, all three suspects became combative. All three of them, including George Floyd. Obviously, George Floyd then gets put in the car. He begs to be taken out of the car. Then he has to be laid on the ground, and then you see the video where the knee of the officer is on his neck. Now, it all looks horrible. All looks bad, and it doesn't seem reasonable for the officer to have his knee on his neck for a very long period of time. I'm not sure there's one cop that I've ever talked to or heard talk about it say that it looked reasonable. Everybody believes that was way too much. But the things, what I want to bring up, and that is that we have this media, right? I'm going to bring them up again. The CNNs and the MSDNCs and the ABCs, NBC, CBS, the PBSs, all of them, right? They have this hatred for the country. They had a hatred for Donald Trump, sure, but that's all over, right? Trump's not only president, and they still have this hatred for America. They still want to, speak about things in a way that is just detrimental to our country, talking about how police are racist, talking about how white people are racist, that, Mr. Potato Head is racist, that Pepe Le Pew is racist. I mean, we just go on, right? They just keep feeding this hatred and anger in our society, which is going to, and has already got a large number of people killed, but is going to continue to get people killed. And I'm wondering at one point, is the media going to be held to held to account for the deaths that are being caused based on their recklessness in how they're reporting these stories? And then you have the politicians that are also on top of it, right? So the politicians need to be held accountable. And I hate that word because everybody uses it, but held accountable. And you have the press that need to be held accountable, just much like the young kid who, that they tried to demonize because he just trying not to react when the Indian guy was banging the drum and getting his face, and they tried to say that it was the young white kid who was causing a problem with an Indian, when in fact it was the other way around, and he won millions of dollars. We need more of that. We need more of that with all the people that were killed during the riots, because the riots occurred because of the narrative the media fed the country, fed the world, essentially, and the politicians who fed off of that messaging from the media, and then it just kept hand over fist, right? It just kept coming. Now, whether it was first from the politicians or first from the media, who knows, right? We think sometimes it's actually the politicians are feeding the information to the media. In many cases, it is, especially when it comes to President Trump. But again, you have a number of people that run these businesses. You got the Bezos, who runs, I believe, not only Amazon, but he also runs the Washington Post, I believe. I could be wrong, but I think he runs both of those things. You have the guy who runs, and I forget his name, runs CNN. You have these guys that they are clearly running the narratives. They're telling everybody else what to say, which means they're reporters or they're anchors to say one thing. And what's happening is it's causing this hatred. Again, I'm just going to go over it again. They have a hatred for Republicans, have a hatred for conservatives and Republicans can be the same thing, but sometimes they're not, as we know. And so sometimes I feel like I have to separate them in a way. Entrepreneurs even are not always Republicans or conservatives. I know that sounds strange, but sometimes entrepreneurs are are Democrats also, but they could also be independents. But for some reason, there's this hatred of people that make money, that have an idea, that work hard. There's a hatred for them, that they're systemically racist and white supremacist. And then you have police, of course. And then you had the military when it was under control of Donald Trump, but now under the control of Biden, it's being used there at the Capitol, but not being used anywhere else. So you got this weird dynamic now where the military is now kind of strange. I know it's mostly National Guard that's in the area of the Capitol. But you have more troops around the Capitol than we have in Afghanistan and Iraq combined. I heard that earlier this week, that we have more military around the Capitol than we do in Afghanistan and Iraq combined. Troops, foot soldiers, more of them are in the Capitol. You have none of them in Seattle right now, which is burning down, or Portland that is burning down. You have none of them in Minneapolis, which had a shooting the other night, right? You have none of them are there. You have them where nothing's happening, right? You put 5,000 troops in the Capitol where nothing's happening. You have a couple people we saw the other day taking pictures, in front of the Capitol and the fencing, but that's what you have. Where there's actual violence and death and shootings, you have no National Guard. You have no fencing around in Portland, I believe it is where the federal building that it was being torched again with people inside of it, right? It's great. The Capitol wasn't torched, but you have this federal building in Portland that's being torched, and you have no National Guard going there to rescue that building because it doesn't fit, right? It's okay. It's okay that it's happening over there. We just don't want it happening to us. All right. So I lay all that out. And the reason it took so long on that stuff, because I want to really kind of address this here. And that is this idea of defunding law enforcement. So you have Mayor Lori Lightfoot, in this case, she actually did not necessarily agree with it, but you had Chicago wanting to defund and dismantle law enforcement. Now, again, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt here that in this article, it says that she really wasn't for it, but she was for taking some funds and using it for other stuff. All right. Then you have, hold on. I got to change this around here. I had one other story here. Oops, I got to cut this off. Sorry, there's a video playing. Now I click on these things and all these videos are playing. Hold on, I got to stop the videos. There we go. So you have Minneapolis, who was defunding and dismantling law enforcement. We had Seattle. There we go. And so then we also had Seattle. I just don't have the article for it. Oh, maybe I do. Portland. So Portland also was doing it. But now in a reversal, you have sorry, my articles got switched around. I don't know how I must have dragged by accident. So Minneapolis, who was the leader, one of the first cities who said they were going to defund and dismantle police officer, suddenly on February 13th here, 2021, they decided, nope, you know what? Instead of defunding, we're going to spend $6.4 million to recruit more police officers. Wow. Why? Why did that happen, do you think? And then you had Portland mayor today, I think it is. No, it was a couple of days ago, March 12th, 2021. He says the Portland mayor seeks funding for police patrols after spike in violence. What do you you didn't know that was going to happen? And then you have Chicago, I think it is here. Chicago to hire more than 500 police officers. Now, this I want to share with you was in 2017. Why am I showing you an article in 2017? Because Chicago knew that back in 2017 that more officers were the answer to a spike in crime. They knew back then they needed to hire 500 new officers. And that was back between September 20th, 2016 and July 5th, 2017. This is an article that kind of got updated. But yet here in June 9th of 2020, the city of Chicago wanted to dismantle and defund law enforcement. And so we're going to show you why. So here let me go to Seattle first. So here's this is the crime statistics in each one of the cities, and you can look at them and they get a rating. So Seattle, which I don't know, I never thought of it as a high crime ridden city. I've been there several times and I love it there. But you see right here, this number 4, that 4 means that it is one of the lowest numbers, which means that it's the highest crime. So the lowest number out of 100. So the best, I'm sorry, I thought I was in camera. So the best cities that have low crime levels get everything up to 100. So you have some cities that are in the 90s and a couple in the 80s and 70s, which is pretty good. You have some crime, but it's not horrible. And so on the opposite end, you have the low numbers. When you have a low number, that means you have high crime. So Seattle has gone down to a 4. A 4. How bad do you have to have a 4? Well, let me show you. A 4 is pretty bad, and that's in Seattle. We're going to go to Minneapolis. Look at this. Minneapolis is a 3. Now, Minneapolis is a pretty crime-ridden city, and they're a 3. But look at this. Chicago is an 8. So the crime index for Seattle and for Minneapolis is worse than Chicago. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had my screen up. Sorry about that. So Chicago is an 8. This is Chicago. This is Minneapolis, a 3. And you have Seattle, which is a 4. So you have Seattle down there with Minneapolis, but Chicago being an 8 is way higher. It's bad. It's bad, but you have Seattle down below Chicago. It's worse to live in Seattle right now than it is to live in Chicago. Who would have thought? And Chicago, let's look at how many murders there are in Chicago. So if I go down, I'm going to bring my screen back here. I got a lot of tabs open up here. So if we were to go, let's see. So violent crimes, there's Chicago annual crimes, 25,000 violent crimes, 25,000.5 thousand crimes, and property crimes, 81,000 for a total of 107. So let me scroll down. And you can look at all these stats. All you got to do is go to neighborhood.com, and then, they have all the crime statistics. So right down here. So burglaries, 9,721. And that's per 1,000 people. Oh, no, per 1,000 people is 361. So that's a lot. So out of every 1,000 people, 361 people get burglarized. Where's that? I was looking for the homicides. I got to go down a little bit farther. Hold on. Where'd the homicides go? Hold on, I'll get it. I'll find it. The chances of becoming a victim in Chicago is 1 in every 33. 1 in every 33 people in Chicago will be the victim of a crime. And Seattle's worse than Chicago. Where's the murders? Sorry. Oh, here it is. So murders, total murders. In Chicago, and oh my gosh, it's not telling me. I'm trying to find out if that's in a month or not. Oh, it's per 1,000 people. So that's always per 1,000 people. So 493 murders in Chicago. So I've lost my stats here, and my thing's all upside down. But it's high. And my main point was the crime index, right? So we know the murders have gone up in Chicago, but for Seattle to be worse than Chicago on a crime index of 4 is just kind of heartbreaking, considering how beautiful Seattle has been in the past, and then Portland is not faring much better. All right. So sorry about that. I was looking for something that I couldn't find there, and if somehow it got lost, sorry about that. So I just want to finish up this one part of it, is that when you're looking what's happening in all the cities I named, right? Chicago, Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland are all Democratic run cities. You got New York also that has a crime rate. You got Portland. That the Baltimore has a high crime rate. When you take all these cities, and this is where I get back. Now I want to circle back, just like the press secretary. I want to circle back that when you take all of this into mind, right, in mind, where you have these areas like Seattle and Portland, Chicago, Minneapolis, and Baltimore, and know that they're run by Democrats, and you just simply have to wonder why they thought it was a good idea to vote for a Democratic president. Now, we know that there's some problems that occurred with the election, and so we can go into all that, but it's not necessary, because if I do, I'll get suspended from YouTube again. So I'm not going to go there, but you know what I'm talking about, right? We can go into all of that, but let's just say, because I know a couple people that voted for Democrat, or that voted for Biden. I know them. They're people that I thought were actually pretty smart people. But if you were just to look at the cities, just look at San Francisco, which I didn't talk about. When you look at Los Angeles, when you look at Portland and Washington, and you look at California as a state, when the number of businesses that have been lost is like 3 or 4 times that of any other state in the union. And you see how this city, this state was run, and you think, well, let's just see how a Democrat will do running the country. How dumb do you have to be? And now you have to look at that he's clearly got dementia. You have to be a moron if you can't see that Biden has dementia. So not only are you taking what would be a horribly run example of California, Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, Chicago, New York, and you look at those as an example of what it looks like when a Democrat runs those locations, and now you're going to put him in the White House? And then you add to that he's got dementia. Add to that, he's got a vice president that couldn't even get past the nomination for president. She didn't make it even past the second phase or what it was. She didn't even make it past that. And now you're making her the vice president. You put those two nitwits together and you think that's a really good idea to have them run our country. It's no wonder that on this date, we have open borders. We have bills that are going through to really begin to curtail weapons in the hands of Americans. You're seeing taxes raised. You're seeing gas prices raised. You're seeing more people lose jobs, not only because of COVID now, but because of the bills that are being passed by the president. And you think that you have some sense of intelligence and you're smart, that you voted this guy into the presidency. And you are exposed in this entire year. In this entire year, you had a chance to see what Democrats would do with this country. You had a chance to see what these mayors and governors were doing to these cities and states. You see what Cuomo was doing. Everybody knew that he was murdering the elderly in New York. Everybody knew that he was an a-hole. And yet you had Biden calling him the golden example of what a governor should look like running a state. And now he's going to be probably indicted for sexual assault and eventually probably homicide. And yet you had the president of the United States who says he's the golden example of a governor, and that he said his son, who's a crack addict, is the smartest guy that he knows, and you still decided to vote for Biden. And you had a year of example of what it looked like for Democrats to run stuff. They can't run a gas station. They can't run a McDonald's, much less run a city, a state, or a country at this point. Now, if we were to look back decades ago with different Democratic presidents, there were a couple that were probably okay. Right. So we can't say that it's the Democratic old. We got this new weird Democrat. They're lost. They're confused. They're un-American, and they hate Americans. They hate the Constitution. They hate our history, and they simply want to change everything. So I hope I brought this all together. I know my tabs weren't working, operating as I expected them to do, but I hope that the point came across that you had a year of madness to see what it was going to be like if you voted in a Democratic president. And here we are and seeing exactly what I predicted. And like I always say, I have this sign over here that says, I may be wrong, but I doubt it. But I've been warning you all about this for a year now and told you this was going to happen. All right. The one last thing I just want to finish up on, and that's the George Floyd stuff. And that is, again, this is a thing that I told you just very few days after the incident. And I said back then, when I first saw the video, I was shocked as anybody else. I said, what the hell's going on here? This is crazy that he's on that guy's neck for that long. But I did say at some point we need to wait and see what all the evidence. We don't know. And I got a lot of crap from people saying, no, you got to be kidding me. You can't be getting. No, I'm just telling you, we have to know all of the evidence. This occurred with the shooting in Atlanta. This occurred with the shooting. I named them all earlier. I can't remember all the locations again. Minneapolis, Atlanta. And then the other one's escaping me. But, you know the ones I'm talking about. They were kind of all over the place for a period of time there. But we can't make any rash judgments or make any decisions. That we need to hear all the evidence. We need to see everything that occurred. There's other videos that we probably need to see from light posts, from dash cams, from body cams, from cell phones. Maybe somebody had their camera on to see these things. That we needed to see all these things before you rush to judgment, before you say the cop is a racist, before you say the cop killed somebody unnecessarily. And that included the George Floyd incident. As we're getting closer to trial, things are beginning to come out that I knew about, and I shared them with you, that I knew some stuff that maybe the media wasn't sharing way back when, that he had swallowed some additional narcotics, that he was already under the influence, that during the arrest, he had the opportunity to take what he had in his hand or his pocket and put it in his mouth and swallow it, and he had a lethal amount of fentanyl and methamphetamine in his system. We knew that, and we know that today, that it was a lethal amount. What does a lethal amount mean? mean? It means that it'll kill you. And so I'm telling you, it's going to be very difficult to convict the police officer of murder if something else in fact killed him. Does that mean he's going to get off scot-free? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you it's probably not going to be the result that the media has been feeding you and telling the community around Minneapolis what to expect, that this cop is a dirty cop. He could be, I don't know, but the narrative's really not fitting into place like they wanted it to. You also have training videos or training pictures from a manual that shows the proper way of kneeling on a person's neck. And those pictures are starting to come out that this officer was trained to do what he was doing. If that's, oh my God, if that's going to be in evidence, and that is true, because I've seen the pictures that show that, if that is in the training manual and he went through the course and had a certificate that says that he went through that training that showed him how to do that in that way, and that's what he was doing, we're going to have a difficult time getting a conviction. Now, that also depends on the jury, right? If they went out and found a bunch of jury members that will have no problem convicting a cop regardless of what the evidence shows. So if the evidence shows that George Floyd died of a number of different things, even from a shot from somebody, somewhere else, like, I don't know, he got shot, he got, hit by lightning. Even if he got hit by lightning and died because of the lightning, they'll still convict the cop if they have the right jury, right? They've done a job of finding a jury that doesn't care. They just want to convict the cop because they hate the cop. Then there's nothing we're going to be able to do about it. But if they do their job, and you have a reasonable doubt that this officer killed George Floyd by kneeling on his neck, then we're going to have a tough time. And now we're going to have a tough time because of the media setting us up for failure. The failure being that the failure to convict the police officer what the community is expecting. And if he does not get convicted of what they're expecting, you can expect that we're going to have some violence in the streets of not only Minneapolis, but across the United States, because the media and the politicians have set us up for failure. And that kind of hopefully brings us back around to the beginning where I said, when are the politicians and the media going to be held accountable for what they've done to this country over the last 4 years in total? The last 4 years in total, they've cost our country millions, if not billions of dollars. They've cost us millions of lives, not millions of lives, hundreds of lives. And hundreds and thousands of businesses, and it's the fault of the media and a large number of the politicians on the Democratic side of things. And so that is my take on all this stuff. I hope I was able to kind of bring it all around, and bring it to a place where we could just simply say happy anniversary. That we had a year. I had a year of trying to talk about all this stuff, to try to bring it out the light. I hope I've done that over the last year. I'm going to continue with these shows, and one of these days I'm going to get a producer that's going to operate all these tabs and things that I'm trying to do while I'm talking, which obviously I'm trying to get too complex. So I need to fix that because as I'm doing this, I'm accidentally clicking on things, and it's not giving us the smoothness that I would like to see. So in the description, I'm not sure if I put it in there this time. In the description, quite often you'll see a Patreon link. If you have any interest of supporting the shows that we do here, myself and Hedia, there is a Patreon link. Actually, let me put it in the comments if you want to. I'm not going to guilt anybody into doing it. I'm just trying to find the Patreon link. It's in here somewhere. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up. There it is. It's not complete yet, but there's a couple areas where you can, $1 a month or something like that. So it's no big deal. But I put a couple of things in there, $5 a month and some other stuff. So here is the Patreon link. If you feel so inclined to do something like that, feel free to do that. Again, it's going to expand. We're going to have some coffee cups and some T-shirts and some other stuff that are going to be put in there that when you click a certain amount, you'll automatically get one of those items after I think it's 2 or 3 months of donating to our cause here to keep the show up and on. But those will be coming up in the near future. It's a little bit wonky on how you create it, so I just need a little bit more time of putting those things together. All right, my friends, I love you guys. God bless. Thanks for tuning in and being a part of our show. Hetty and I do a show, a devotional. If you're a Christian or thinking about becoming a Christian or have no idea what it's like to be Christian, Hedia is a former Muslim who came came to Christ a year or two ago, and her and I do this devotional together. Her and I met not too long ago, and our relationship has grown to the point where we got married recently. So you'll hear from us and our story and how that all works. And I know it seems strange to some people, but hopefully we'll help you see that it makes sense as we're doing that devotional. So it's a whole thing. It's kind of like a welcome to our life, but also we're reading a devotional and walking you through the gifts of God. All right, my friends, we love you guys. Have a great, great day. And thank you for your comments and participating. Love you guys. Take care. Talk to you later.